Welcome, everyone. I'm excited to kick off today's presentation on informative text writing. We'll explore the incredible power of facts and how they help us uncover the world, one fact at a time. In the next few slides, I'll guide you through the importance of factual writing, tips to craft clear and engaging information, and how to make your writing impactful. Let's get started and discover the power of facts together. So let's talk about what an informative text is. Essentially, it's a type of nonfiction writing. Its main goal is to provide clear, accurate information about a specific topic. When we say nonfiction, we mean it's based on real facts and real-world subjects, not fiction or made-up stories. The primary purpose of this kind of writing is to inform the reader. It could be about an event, a concept, or a particular subject matter. And because it's based on facts, it relies on data, details, and information that you can verify. In our overall discussion about different types of texts, understanding informative texts is key because they help us learn and understand new things through accurate and factual information. So, where can we find information? Well, there are many sources we rely on daily. Magazines and newspapers are common examples. They often contain news articles and scientific reports that keep us updated on current events and new discoveries. Encyclopedias and textbooks, on the other hand, provide detailed knowledge about various subjects, making them essential for in-depth understanding. Biographies are another valuable source. They offer factual accounts of a person's life, helping us learn from their experiences. Instruction manuals are practical tools, step-by-step guides that show us how to use products or complete tasks effectively. Websites are incredibly diverse, including educational sites and factual blogs, which are easily accessible and packed with reliable information. And don't forget recipes. These are great examples of how we find clear, step-by-step cooking instructions to try new dishes at home. All of these sources play a crucial role in how we gather information, and understanding where to find accurate data is key to our overall goal of reliable research. Let's start by looking at some key characteristics of data and objectivity. First, we have the importance of data and details. Informative text should provide clear data and detailed descriptions about the facts involved. These details help answer the essential questions. Who is involved? What exactly happened? Where did it occur? When did it take place? Why did it happen? And how did it work? Understanding these questions ensures that the information is complete and precise. Moving on, another critical aspect is objective language. When we write or communicate about facts, we need to use language that is neutral and clear. This means avoiding personal opinions and feelings, steering clear of bias or favoritism, and focusing solely on the facts. It's also important to support our claims with evidence, present information fairly, and maintain a professional tone. By doing so, we make sure that our communication is reliable, transparent, and trustworthy, which aligns with the overall goal of presenting factual, unbiased information. Now, let's take a closer look at organizing information using different text structures. These structures help us explain ideas clearly and effectively. One common way is through description, where we explain a topic by highlighting its characteristics and providing examples. For instance, we might say, "A penguin is a flightless bird with black and white feathers," which helps paint a vivid picture. Another structure is sequence, which involves listing steps or events in order. This is useful when explaining processes. For example, first, mix ingredients, next, bake, finally, cool. It guides the audience through the process step by step. Then there's cause and effect, which shows how one event leads to another. Think of it as explaining the reasons behind something happening. For example, because it rained, the game was postponed. This helps clarify the relationship between events. Compare and contrast is another useful structure. It highlights similarities and differences between two ideas or objects. For example, unlike cats, dogs are more social animals. This helps the audience understand how things are alike and different. Finally, problem and solution involves presenting a problem and then offering possible solutions. For example, pollution is a problem. We can recycle to help. This structure is great for discussing challenges and how to address them. By using these text structures, we can organize information more effectively, making our explanations clearer and more engaging for our audience. All right, let's take a look at some questions to test our understanding of informative text basics. First, question 1 asks us, which of the following is the primary purpose of an informative text? Is it to convince someone to buy a product, tell a fictional story, provide factual information about a topic, or express the author's personal feelings? The correct answer is C, which is to provide factual information about a topic. This highlights that the main goal of an informative text is to inform, not to persuade or entertain with fiction. Now, moving on to question 2. It asks whether it's true or false that informative writing should include the author's opinions to make the text more interesting. The answer here is false. Why? Because informative texts are meant to be objective. They rely on facts and clear, unbiased language without personal opinions sneaking in. This consistency helps readers trust the information and understand it clearly. Connecting this to our overall theme, understanding these fundamentals helps us recognize what makes good informative writing: accuracy, objectivity, and clarity. Keep these points in mind as we continue to explore effective ways to communicate information clearly and professionally. All right, let's move on to test your knowledge. Informative text basics continued. Now, here's question 3. Can you name 3 places where you might find an informative text? Take a moment to think about it. Some common examples include magazines, encyclopedias, instruction manuals, websites, biographies, textbooks, newspapers, blogs, and scientific reports. These are all great sources because they provide factual, detailed information on various topics. Understanding where to find informative texts is important because it helps us know where to look when we need reliable information. Remember, these texts are designed to inform and educate, so they're usually well-structured and clear. Connecting this to our overall theme, recognizing different sources helps us become better at finding and understanding informative content, which is a key skill in effective communication and learning. Water is truly essential for all life on Earth. It's not just a drink, it's a fundamental part of our survival, our food, our industry, and even the energy that powers our daily lives. When we understand just how important water is, it helps us appreciate this precious resource a lot more. For example, within our own bodies, water makes up about 60%. It's crucial for things like digestion, helping nutrients move and break down, and also for regulating our body temperature, keeping us cool or warm as needed. In agriculture, water is the lifeblood for growing crops. Farmers rely on irrigation to water their fields, which in turn feeds billions of people around the world. Without sufficient water, food production would be impossible, and that would impact everyone. And beyond that, water is vital for industry and energy. It's used in manufacturing processes, helping produce everything from electronics to clothing. Plus, it's the key resource for generating hydroelectric power, which provides clean energy for homes and businesses. All of these points highlight how water connects to the larger picture of sustainability and the importance of managing this resource wisely. All right, let's review some key points from our discussion on water. First, regarding the human body, do you recall what percentage is made up of water? That's right, about 60%. This highlights just how vital water is to our biological functions and overall health. Now, moving on to how we describe water in texts. If a passage explains the steps of the water cycle, like evaporation, condensation, and precipitation, it's using what's called a sequence text structure. This means the information is presented in a specific order, helping us understand the continuous process water goes through in nature. Both of these points emphasize the importance of water, not just in our bodies, but also in understanding natural processes. Recognizing these structures and facts helps us appreciate water's role in life and the environment. Now, let's move on to our third question, which focuses on objective language. I want you to think about how we can rephrase the sentence, "I think water is the most amazing thing in the world," to make it more objective. The key hint here is that water is essential for life. So instead of expressing a personal opinion, we should state a fact. For example, we could say, water is essential for all known forms of life. This way, we're focusing on a verifiable fact rather than personal feelings. Remember, using objective language helps us communicate more clearly and professionally, especially when discussing important topics like the role of water. This ties back to our overall theme of understanding water's significance, not just from a personal perspective, but from a scientific and practical standpoint. When planning my first trip abroad, I knew that careful preparation was key to making the experience smooth and enjoyable. One of the most important steps is securing my passport. It's an official travel document that most countries require, and it usually takes about 4 to 6 weeks to get. Plus, I need to make sure it's valid for at least 6 months beyond my travel dates. Next, packing essentials is crucial. I want to bring the right clothing for the climate, toiletries, any medications I might need, and important documents like travel insurance. Also, I should carry local currency or credit cards suitable for my destination to avoid any inconvenience once I arrive. Arriving at the airport early is another key point, about 2 to 3 hours before my international flight. That gives me enough time to check in, go through security screening, and handle passport control without rushing before I board. Lastly, I need to be aware of cultural differences. Every country has its own customs, languages, and traditions. Learning a few basic phrases and showing respect for local customs demonstrates cultural awareness and helps me connect more meaningfully with the people I meet. All these steps, passport, packing, airport procedures, and cultural understanding, are interconnected. They help turn what might seem like complicated logistics into a positive and enriching travel experience. Let's go through some key points from this Q&A session about my first trip abroad. First, we looked at a question asking which sentence is a fact that would belong in an informative text. The options were about the airport being confusing, the local currency in France, and the food being the best part. The correct answer is B, which states that the local currency in France is the euro. This highlights an important fact. Knowing the local currency is essential for travel, and it's a good example of factual information that belongs in an informative text. Next, we discuss the structure of a text that lists items you need to pack in your carry-on luggage. When a text is organized as a list or description of items, it uses what we call a description or list, sequence, structure. Recognizing this helps us understand how information is organized, making it easier to follow and remember. Finally, we looked at a question about what we call the process of changing one country's money into another's. The term for this is currency exchange. Knowing this term is useful because it's a common part of international travel and helps us communicate more effectively about money matters abroad. Overall, these questions reinforce the importance of understanding factual information, recognizing text structures, and knowing key travel terminology, all of which are essential for preparing for a trip abroad. All right, now we're moving on to our final practice challenge. First, let's look at challenge question 1. Is a recipe an informative text? Why or why not? Think about whether it provides information, uses objective language, and what kind of text structure it has. Remember, the key point here is that recipes do inform readers about the steps needed to make food. They use a sequence structure to guide you through each part of the process and provide factual ingredients and instructions. So yes, recipes are a type of informative text because they give clear, factual information to help you accomplish a task. Now for challenge question 2. I want you to write one sentence that states an objective fact about your school. It's important to avoid personal opinions here. Focus on clear, factual language and answer questions like who, what, where, when, why, or how. For example, you could say, our school has 500 students in grades 5 through 8. Remember, your answer should be specific, objective, and based on facts. This exercise helps us practice sharing information in a straightforward, unbiased way. All right, let's dive into challenge question 3. So, what is the main difference between an informative text, which is nonfiction, and a fictional story? Well, first, think about their purpose. Informative texts are designed to teach us something or provide us with facts. They aim to inform and often include real information, organized in a way that makes it easy to understand and learn. On the other hand, fictional stories are created mainly for entertainment. They're invented, imaginative, and meant to engage our minds through storytelling. The content is made up, and the structure often follows a narrative pattern, like beginning, middle, and end, focused on characters and plots. So, to sum it up, the key points are that informative texts are about real facts and designed to educate, while fictional stories are invented for fun and entertainment. Recognizing these differences helps us understand how each type of text is organized and what we can expect from them. This understanding ties into the overall theme of how different texts serve different purposes and are structured uniquely to meet those goals. All right, as we wrap up, let's focus on the key takeaways from this slide. The goal of an informative text is simple but crucial: to inform your audience clearly and effectively. To do that, you want to include key elements like nonfiction content, facts, and data, things that are accurate and reliable. The tone should always be objective and clear, so your message comes across without confusion or bias. Structurally, your writing needs to be organized and logical, guiding your reader smoothly from one idea to the next. Remember, the ultimate goal is to create an informative text that is both trustworthy and easy to understand. Now, I encourage you to go out and practice writing your own informative pieces. Focus on these principles, and you'll be well on your way to creating effective, impactful texts.